Imagine waking up one morning and hearing the ground shake. Birds fly away in panic, car alarms start screaming. And then, a giant shadow covers the streets. It is a dinosaur. A creature that disappeared 65 million years ago. Now standing right in front of us. This is not a movie. This is the question. Many people have a deep fascination with dinosaurs and want to know what would really happen if dinosaurs returned to Earth. In this video, we will imagine such a situation and try to explain what might happen if dinosaurs came back. Will they destroy humans? Will they become pets? Or will they simply live on Earth like elephants, tigers, and other wild animals? So let's start the video. If dinosaurs returned to Earth suddenly, without warning, the impact on human society would be immediate and overwhelming. Our world is built for predictable wildlife animals whose behavior we have studied and understood. But dinosaurs come from a completely different era. They evolved in an environment with different climates, different vegetation, and different predators. Their minds and instincts would not match anything we know today, and that is where the chaos begins. Imagine that the dinosaur standing on your street is a Tyrannosaurus rex. Its massive head swings from side to side, confused by buildings, cars, and human-made noise. A T-Rex had one of the strongest bite forces in history, over 8,000 pounds of pressure. It could crush metal, break bones, and tear through almost anything. Not out of anger, but simply because that is how its body is designed. Scientists believe a T-Rex could run at speeds close to 27 kilometers per hour. That is faster than most humans. And when an animal this size begins to panic, cities become dangerous instantly. But the T-Rex is not the only problem. Herbivorous dinosaurs like Triceratops or Ankylosaurus may not attack humans directly, but they are still powerful and unpredictable. A Triceratops, for example, could weigh up to 6 tons. Its horns alone could puncture vehicles. And its shield-like frill was built to defend against predators even bigger than it. If such an animal wandered into a city or farmland, it could destroy everything in its path without even realizing what it was doing. In the first 24 hours, news media would explode with footage of dinosaurs roaming streets, feeding on vegetation, or being chased by terrified crowds. Governments would immediately declare emergency zones. Airports would stop flights, highways would be shut down, and people would be ordered to stay inside. The fear would not come only from the animal's size, but from the fact that we simply do not understand their behavior. They lived in a world where they competed with creatures just as large and deadly as themselves. Modern animals would stand no chance. When dinosaurs first appeared on Earth millions of years ago, the atmosphere had more oxygen and was warmer. Plants were taller, forests were denser, and ecosystems were rich with giant insects and reptiles. Today's environment is different. Oxygen levels are lower, temperatures fluctuate more sharply, and the vegetation is less nutritious for dinosaur digestion. Some dinosaurs might struggle to adapt, while others, especially predators, might adjust more easily because meat sources are still available. Cows, deer, and wild animals could quickly become prey. One of the most interesting questions people ask is whether dinosaurs would actively hunt humans. In reality, humans might not be their first choice. Many large carnivores today, like lions or tigers, attack humans only when they are hungry or threatened. Dinosaurs, especially apex predators like T-Rex or Giganotosaurus, hunted large animals. A human is too small and offers too little energy compared to the effort required to catch one. But this doesn't make humans safe. If a dinosaur panics or feels curious, it could cause tremendous damage simply because it does not understand our existence. As dinosaurs spread across different regions, the ecosystem would begin to collapse. Modern herbivores like horses, deer, and zebras would be outcompeted immediately. Most dinosaurs ate constantly to support their massive bodies. A large sauropod like Brachiosaurus could eat several hundred kilograms of leaves and plants each day. In a world already struggling with deforestation and agriculture demands, dinosaurs would worsen the situation drastically. The first week after their return would be the most chaotic. Humans would attempt to capture or control dinosaurs, but with limited success. Tranquilizers strong enough to put an elephant to sleep might not even affect a 30-ton giant. Drones and helicopters could track their movements, but they could not stop them. And any attempt at military intervention would risk harming the animals, which many environmental groups would protest. The world would be divided, not only by fear but by debates on whether dinosaurs should be protected or controlled. As the days pass, humans would realize that this crisis is not temporary. What started as shock and confusion would turn into a global mission involving scientists, governments, military forces, and environmental specialists. The first challenge would be containment. Dinosaurs would roam into landscapes that were never designed for creatures of such scale. Highways, farmlands, cities, and forests would all become part of their territory. Even a single dinosaur wandering into a populated area could trigger massive evacuations. Governments would quickly form international task forces, similar to the ones used during pandemics or global disasters. Scientists specializing in paleontology, biology, ecology, and genetics would suddenly become some of the most important people on Earth. They would use satellite tracking, GPS collars, and drone surveillance to monitor dinosaur movements. But tracking a dinosaur is one thing, controlling it is another. Tranquilizers strong enough to sedate an elephant weighing 6 tons are already difficult to use. Now imagine trying to stop a 15-ton Tyrannosaurus or a 40-ton Brachiosaurus. The sheer size of these animals means that any sedation attempt would require enormous doses, which could easily overdose or kill the creature. And even if the animal survived, its fall could damage everything around it due to its weight. For example, when large whales become stranded, their collapse can crush buildings or vehicles. Dinosaurs would produce similar effects. Because of this, scientists would likely propose containment zones instead of capture. These zones would become emergency reserves, massive areas of land fenced with reinforced steel walls, electric barriers, and deep trenches. Similar but far smaller systems are already used for elephants and lions in Africa. But dinosaurs, especially intelligent predators like raptors, could learn and adapt quickly. Their brains were small, but they were agile, fast, and clever enough to coordinate group behavior when hunting. One of the most surprising threats would come from herbivores. Many people imagine that plant-eating dinosaurs are harmless, but in reality, they would be even more destructive than predators. A single sauropod walking through a city could collapse roads and crush water pipes or electrical lines. Their tails could sweep across streets like giant whips, destroying cars and buildings unintentionally. Meanwhile, herds of hadrosaurs or ceratopsians could wipe out entire farmlands in a matter of days. Modern agriculture, already strained by climate change, would suffer worst. Soon after their appearance, global supply chains would begin to weaken. Food shortages could occur in areas where herbivore populations grow too large. Local wildlife would also decline rapidly. Small animals like deer, goats, antelope, and even cattle would become prey for large carnivores. Apex predators like lions, wolves, and tigers would suddenly be pushed down the food chain, forced to compete with giants they have never encountered before. Nature itself would rebel. Forests would be trampled, mangroves destroyed, and wetlands torn apart by massive herbivores migrating through unfamiliar terrain. Birds, reptiles, and mammals would lose habitat rapidly. Humans would have no choice but to protect endangered species by relocating them away from dinosaur zones. It would become the largest wildlife relocation effort in history. Amidst all this chaos, scientists would face a deeper concern: disease. Dinosaurs returning after 65 million years would bring bacteria, fungi, or parasites that modern animals might have no immunity against. This could lead to new infections that spread through livestock or wildlife. On the other hand, dinosaurs themselves might be vulnerable to modern viruses or microbes. They could fall ill quickly, especially because they evolved in a much warmer and more stable climate. Veterinarians and biologists would struggle to diagnose or treat illnesses in creatures they never expected to exist. At the same time, governments would need to keep the public calm. Misinformation would spread: online fake sightings, exaggerated threats, and conspiracy theories. Videos of dinosaurs roaming highways or attacking vehicles would go viral. Tourism companies might even try to profit by offering dinosaur safaris, ignoring how dangerous these creatures are. But the biggest question would come from ethical debates. People would argue, should dinosaurs be treated as natural wildlife or as scientific accidents? Some groups would demand that dinosaurs be protected as living fossils. Others would push for strict elimination to protect human life. International law would struggle to classify them. Are they endangered animals? Are they invasive species? Are they biohazards? All these issues would force humanity to rethink how we share the planet. Dinosaurs would not understand borders, fences, or laws. They would simply exist surviving as they always have. And humans would need to decide whether to coexist with them or control them completely. But how did dinosaurs return in the first place? And could this actually happen in real life? The answer lies in the world of genetics and evolution. To understand whether dinosaurs could truly return, we must look at the current state of science. Paleontologists have discovered soft tissues, blood vessel shapes, and protein fragments inside some well-preserved fossils. These discoveries are fascinating, but they are not enough to bring a dinosaur back to life. DNA, the molecule that carries genetic instructions, is extremely fragile. Scientists have found that DNA cannot survive more than about 6 to 7 million years in natural conditions. Dinosaurs went extinct around 65 million years ago, meaning their DNA is far too damaged to use for cloning. This is why the Jurassic Park idea extracting DNA from fossils or amber does not work in reality. However, that doesn't mean science has stopped exploring possibilities. Birds are the closest living relatives of dinosaurs. In fact, they are modern dinosaurs. Over millions of years, small feathered dinosaurs evolved into birds, changing shape, but keeping many genetic markers from their ancient ancestors. Because of this connection, some scientists have experimented with reversing bird evolution. In one experiment, chicken embryos were genetically modified to grow teeth similar to small dinosaurs. In another, researchers altered genes that control tail development, causing the embryos to form a long, reptile-like tail. These experiments were stopped before the animals hatched, but they proved something important. The genetic blueprint for dinosaurs still exists in fragments inside modern birds. This leads to a future possibility, not the return of pure dinosaurs, but the creation of dinosaur-like hybrids. Using gene editing tools like CRISPR, scientists might one day reconstruct ancient traits. A creature could be engineered to look and behave somewhat like a dinosaur, though it would still be a modern organism, not a true prehistoric animal. But even if dinosaurs were brought back, artificially or naturally, what would their long-term future look like on Earth? It's likely that after the initial chaos, humans would adapt. Just as we learned to live with lions, elephants, and whales, we would find ways to live alongside dinosaurs cautiously and with respect for their power. Large reserves might be built in remote areas, creating protected zones where dinosaurs could live without threatening human settlements. These reserves would approach the size of small countries because many dinosaurs needed vast territories to survive. Imagine a national park in Australia, Africa, or South America where herds of triceratops graze under the open sky. Imagine distant thunder-like sounds as sauropods move slowly across the horizon. Scientific tourism would grow rapidly. Paleontologists would finally observe dinosaur behavior directly, how they care for their young, what they eat, how they migrate, and how they interact socially. Questions that puzzled scientists for centuries would finally have answers. Smaller species might even become part of controlled ecosystems. A few harmless herbivores could coexist in large forest parks, much like deer today. But predators like T-Rex, Giganotosaurus, and raptors would remain under strict confinement. Their strength, speed, and instincts would make them too dangerous for open coexistence. Over time, humans might begin to understand these creatures better. Training, studying, and even partially domesticating smaller species could become possible. Dogs evolved from wolves through thousands of years of careful selection. Similar processes, though slower and more complicated, could apply to some dinosaurs. Tiny feathered species could become exotic pets in the distant future, while larger ones remain protected in massive wildlife zones. But despite all this, the fundamental truth remains: dinosaurs would change the world forever. Their return would reshape ecosystems, governments, science, and human imagination. They would remind us how small and fragile humanity is compared to the giant forces of nature. They would force us to confront our role on Earth. Are we protectors, competitors, or caretakers of life, both old and new? In the end, the question is not just what would happen if dinosaurs return, but whether humanity is prepared for such a dramatic shift in the balance of life. The presence of these prehistoric giants would challenge everything we know, transforming our planet into a place where ancient history walks again, breathing, living, and reminding us of the incredible story of life on Earth.